be even risk averse. They'll be focused more on the nitty-gritty of the numbers instead of on the bigger picture around driving your sales. And so ensuring you've got the right person sitting on the right seat of your bus is very important. And so that's where it starts, first of all. Who's filling up the seats in the bus, and are they the right people for that role? Yeah.
Great. And then sometimes people feel that I might need a lot of people to execute on this. Tell us, in terms of execution, what would be the most critical roles? And if you are small, like you don't have a big budget, what should people focus on?
Sales. I think sales is the most important thing for any business. Sales is really like oxygen for a business, and you don't want to tell your business to hold its breath, for a second. Just hold your breath for a second. This is something that our friend Mark in the Netherlands was just sharing with us, and why that is super, super critical in continuously doing. And we can tinker with our websites and say, I want to make it prettier, or we're making product improvements. But if people are not even buying the product in the first place, it's really unlikely that whatever little improvements we're going to make might make this better. And so being able to put ourselves and our business in front of our customers and actually get a customer to pay is the number one skill for any business. There'll be nothing to account for if you don't sell. There'll be no salaries if you don't sell. And so sales is the first most critical piece in any business, that ability. And so you might have a great product, or you might have a good app, but if nobody wants it or needs it, then you actually don't have a business. The day you make one sale, then you've got a business. And so how do you start to think about driving those sales? And that's why at the beginning, it is the founder's job to be the main salesperson, because you know your business, you know the product, and you know why you started this. And that way you're able to train other people. In fact, your whole organization, when you're small, should be selling. Even your back-end people have to be selling wherever they are, talking about your product. And so the first skill is sales. Post-sales, we can look at things like managing people, which is critical, because if you're not managing people, it's possible for people to fill up their time doing things which are not driving your strategy. And then third, accountability, which means both in how you are accounting for your numbers, how you are, checking whether you are moving towards achieving your goals. And if you're not, being able to learn quickly and shift your strategy to the right direction. Yeah.
Great. And so there are certain founders, and a lot of founders who would have kind of like my personality of you're creative and you make things as you go, but as a result of that, you confuse the team, right? And then sometimes you give the vision that's too big, like, okay, this year we're doing 1,000, next year we're going to do 10,000, right? Which is 10x. But in your mind, it's fine. And then you got your certainty score, you know that, yeah, we can do this. But when that is sometimes is not communicated properly to the team, it can cause confusion. You taught me a method on how to handle that. Could you share that with us?
Cool. So with every vision, it's very important to break it down into its steps, right? For example, you can't just say, we're going to have an event with 1,000 people next month. Your team could just get super intimidated, even if you as a founder know that this is actually very possible. Without creating the steps to take to get there, it's very easy to confuse people and for people to get overwhelmed. And so the first step in achieving any vision is breaking it down into chunks that are a bit easier to chew on, right? And so if you think about an event, for example, we're going to have an event with 1,000 people. What are some of the steps that we can take in order to achieve this? Number one, we have to find a venue. Number two, we have to create a plan for how are we getting there between now and then. So it would be things like, do we need sponsors? Are we going to be catering? Do we need food? Think about all of the clear pieces of that puzzle to get us to that 1,000 people. Are we going to need marketing? So think of all the critical pieces. And then for each piece, create a plan. once you've made that plan, then it's easy to give each of those pieces to somebody. So say we are going to need digital marketing or Facebook marketing for this event in order to drive the numbers. Then who can take this on? And when do we start? It's at this point when it's easier for people to digest. Instead of giving it one big blanket statement, event with 1,000 people, we can say event with 1,000 people. These are the key elements we have to take care of: venue, marketing, catering, and speaker. And therefore, Christy is going to take marketing. Lumbu is going to take finding a sponsors and speaker. And that way it's easy for people to digest. But that is the responsibility of the founder, again, to be able to break that down and communicate it succinctly to people so that people don't come back and say, I was just confused. You never told us any steps. We didn't even know what to do. And so that's important to break down the vision into edible chunks and then give them to each team member so that everybody knows what everyone's doing, but most critically, everybody knows what their responsibility is. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Nilamba is using a real example. Said, we're going to host the biggest startup grind event in the world with over 1,000 people. Like giving that instruction, like, we're going to build a car, and that's it. Right? What type of car? How big? What should it do? What type of fuel and all of that? But thanks for sharing that, Nilamba. And now when it comes to the team, sometimes you have certain skills you really can't afford to put on your team full time, right? But you know, like we might need this person and we might need them for this piece. But sometimes we're scared as founders to say, look, if I give this person a permanent contract, I won't be able to afford them starting from month 2. How do we handle that?
First of all, I always say to founders, you have to find people who are better than you in the critical things that you need for the business. So when we're starting a business, most founders, you're either solo or it's you and a co-founder that are starting a business. As the business starts to grow, you have to build a team in order to speed up execution. Execution, business success, creating wealth, all of these are team sports. It's really impossible to achieve it just on your own. Even if you look at the loftiest plans, like Elon Musk, going into space, right? That takes an incredibly large team to put together, but each team member is super good at what they do. You can't have maybe the person that is in charge of landing the spacecraft back running to Elon to say, what am I supposed to do here, right? So for each element of your business that's critical as you start to grow out your business, you have to find people who are actually better than you at doing each of the skill sets. So in the beginning, you'll be the salesperson. You might be doing your own accounting. You've got 4 sales. You can do your own accounting. You'll probably be your own marketer, your own PR person, all of that stuff. As the business starts to grow, these functions start to be split out because now you need specialization. And for each function, it's very, very important to get somebody who is better than you at doing it. And I know founders feel like a lot of founders feel like nobody can be as good as me at this thing. I'm always having to train these people in order to get this done. That's because you're not finding people who are better than you. And that should be your target all the time. Because you have to realize that with each great team member that comes, you are speeding up your business. And with each poor member of the team that you add on to the team, you're slowing your business. A team is only as good and as fast as its slowest member. And we know this even in animal and herd theory out there in the wilderness. If there's one impala in the whole herd, it's problematic for the group because they'll be slower in trying to protect that weak member. And so ensuring that you're getting A-star people in your team is critical, particularly the first few people that you get on your team, because these are the ones that are going to help you speed up your growth at that initial phase. The second piece is that sometimes we feel, I just can't afford this yet. My budget doesn't allow for this. I've always said there are 2 good tools that you can use in order to afford people. Number one is create such an inspiring vision that people want to do stuff for you actually for free. Because sometimes you might not need these key skills on a full-time basis at that beginning of your journey. Sometimes you might need it once a week, or, right now, for example, I need a really great data visualizer. This is not something that I need on a daily basis, but I can ask somebody to sit down with my data and just help create, real good visuals for it. This could take 1 or 2 days in the month, and that's good enough. And so thinking about all the critical skills that you need and where you can find good people is important. But how much time do you actually need? Because sometimes you're like, I can't afford it, because you're thinking it's a full-time job when it really isn't. It's possible to create such an inspiring vision for your business that you get in people for free. I get a lot of great skilled people come in for free, even for a 3-month stint, to just do critical things for me. These are like MBAs who are coming out of MIT, who are coming out of Oxford University, because we've made our vision inspiring and they want to be a part of it. Whenever I say we run funds that are focused on investing in women entrepreneurs in Africa, this is the impact that we're creating. Do you want to be part of the team that helps us move things forward? People are happy to volunteer. So how do you create an inspiring vision that people, one, are happy to volunteer? Secondly, if you need somebody on a full-time basis and your budget is not allowing, a good tool is actually giving them part equity, to attract them and to get them to feel like they're properly incentivized, but that they're also achieving this mission with you. That's how I joined the Zona team at the beginning. I came in as a consultant. They loved the work that I was delivering. They offered me equity to get on board full time. And this is just before we were raising Series A. So we're not even 100% sure whether we're going to close it or not. But that incentive was good enough, because now I'm feeling I'm part of the ownership structure and this is my business too. I could join at even like half the salary that I could have gotten from corporate, because it was an inspiring vision. And now I'm also a part owner. And so there are tools that you can use to incentivize people, whether you need them on a shorter time basis or a longer time basis. Yeah.
Great. And we've as Pranary, we've used a lot of these methods. So in addition to that, we've also worked with freelancers that are super skilled, and we only pay them for that work. Like we work with a great writer, marketing person from the UK, who we can't afford like for a week, for instance, right? But when he comes in, he gives us enough guidance and value that it moves us forward. And so the encouragement also to all of you here is to not think about geography. Right now, we've got access to people from any part of the world. So something that people still don't believe, like me and Christy still haven't met. I'm looking forward to meeting Christy, but we work together. We worked together for about a year now and worked very well together. She's incredible. So if I was thinking if we were thinking in more traditional way, then Christy would have needed to move to Cape Town and we need an office and all of that. But we're all in different parts of the world. And Christy is brilliant at course creation. Like all these amazing things that we have is because of having somebody who's super skilled at what they do, like that. And Lilimba, so when now it comes to freeing up your time, a lot of people, when they're thinking about scale, they're thinking about my time is going to get even more consumed. That you'll ask me to grow my business, that means I'll now lose sleep.
Yeah. I'll never have time for family if I grow this thing any bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, that already I can't sleep, and now you ask me to make this double, right? Tell us about delegation and how you actually delegate as a leader. And this, we're talking about growth type businesses.
Yeah.
And people who are thinking about, if I want to 10x this, what should they do?
So I think that is the question every founder must be asking themselves, I would say on a weekly basis at the beginning of your week, is what are the things that only I can do and only I should be doing, and what can I give somebody else to do? So this is why having those, A-star team members becomes very important. It all ties in together. Your ability to execute cannot be separated from your ability to create a good team. And it cannot be separated from your ability to keep people accountable. Delegation is one of those things around keeping yourself as well accountable to growing the business. So there will be things that only you can do. We have founders, for example, in our portfolios who are inventors, and they have to be creating products like they have to be creating, makeup, for example, or creating complementary medicines. That is something that only the founder can do, because that is what their skill set is. They are an inventor and they're creating these products, which means that sales, for example, can be given to another team member that is better than them at sales. Accounting can be given to another team member that is better than them at accounting. And so as you are growing your business, this question becomes even more important, because that is how you can free up your time. That is how you can free up your time and speed up the business at the same time. What can I as the founder do? What am I great at? What is the business depending on me to be able to do? And what can I give away so that we are moving faster and I'm freeing up my time to focus only on the most critical things? Dr. Georgia says she cannot hear. Is anybody else getting that issue? Okay, so Michelle says the reception is great on that. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, so Michelle is a great example, actually, now that you spoke up, Michelle. Michelle Carousel is in our portfolio. So she creates complementary medicines. Great store, please go to feelgoodhealth.co.za. And so she's a typical example of what I'm talking about. That is her skill set. That's what she's trained in, creating alternative medicines. And so that might be a difficult thing to delegate, because, that requires that somebody has that background in order to do that. But everything else can be given away. You can get a better salesperson for the business. You can get a better accountant for the business. You can get a better marketer for the business, so that she's freeing up her time for creating the products, and maybe even for, creating big partnerships that can drive the business forward. She can free up logistics. She can free up warehousing. All of these things can be given away to people who might be better skilled at them, so that the founder is focused solely on the things that only they can do, and also only they can do well, right? And so that is how you free up time whilst still growing a business and growing it at the speed of light. Yeah. Sandras, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Okay, cool. Thanks, Lenamba. Now, when it comes to managing the people, now if you want to move fast, right? To move fast and execute fast, what would you say would be a good cadence for checking in and also measuring and executing? Could you tell us about that?
Cool. So one of the most important things in managing accountability is having visibility. People need to see where they're going. We can't drive to Mauritius in a foggy car. We're not seeing where we're going. So having visibility is super important. Visibility is about, we want to have an event of 1,000 people. That's a clear goal. It's put out. The whole team knows this is what we're working towards. And then to achieve this, we need to do digital marketing of 1 month. And this job has been given to, say, Jade, for example. Number 2, we need to find a venue that can fit 1,000 people and get sponsors. And this job is given to Lumbu. Number 3 is we have to have content. We have to have a speaker, and we have questions ready. And this job is given to Christy. And we need somebody to interview the person on the day and to make sure that the event is coordinated and everything is moving along, this job is given to Sandras. That creates visibility. Everybody knows what we're achieving and where we're going, and everybody knows what each team member is doing. And so people in a team are all clear that we're working on different things, but we're moving in the same direction to achieve the same goal. That's number one, visibility. Number two is measuring and checking. You can't manage what you can't measure. If we said social media must start 30 days before, and we find ourselves at day 10 and nothing has been done, it means this is the founder's problem for not measuring and managing the team member that's supposed to be doing the social media marketing. And so measuring, constantly checking in and course correcting is super important in order to speed up your execution. So it's day 29 and there's no social media. Founder checks in with the team member that is supposed to be doing social media. What is happening here? I didn't have internet, I didn't have data. Those are easy things to control, right? Solve that problem, let's get back on track. But you only know this if you are checking in. So in terms of cadence, a weekly check-in with team members is important. If it's a project that is getting tighter and tighter on time, you can move that to daily. If you're having, say, like a big product launch, you can move that to daily. But there are things that you might have a daily stand-up on when people are just reporting on progress, but you also want to ensure that you have weekly check-ins with your team where they can highlight particular challenges that they might be having, maybe with achieving their own goals or maybe with other team members. And so having a space where there's a team check-in, even on a daily basis, is important, but also at least a one-on-one check-in with team members on a weekly basis. As the team grows bigger and bigger, because you will move eventually from a family where there's maybe 5 of you and everybody knows what everybody's doing, you move to a tribe where there's 20 to 50 of you and you start to lose track. So you're only really dealing with the leaders of each team. You then move to a whole country where, at some point we had 200 people in the organization. It was difficult to even remember people's names. When we were at 50, I literally knew everybody and I knew their family members. But when you start to get to that 7,500, you lose track. So how do you keep track of the critical people who are managing critical departments of your business so that you know that things are still moving? So a weekly check-in on a one-on-one basis with your direct reports and at least a daily stand-up with the team. Yeah.
Fantastic. Type 1 in the chat box if you're finding this to be useful. And also, we allow you to type 0 if none of this is working. Great. Thank you. And remember, you have access to these. We have access to this session on Pranary. You have access to it for the next 24 hours. And if you want to continue having lifetime access, you can purchase the all access pass. And then people ask, like, can you have Lelemba's contact numbers? Those of you who are new here, Lelemba is one of the mentors, one of the people that will guide you when you are in the Pranary program. And we have program for senior, we call them senior, but for existing businesses that are already doing over $50,000 or over $1 million. So Lelemba gives you guidance there. And so part of the CEO circle, as well as a new program that we're starting called Velocity, which is aimed at accelerating your growth. So this is super cool. So you get Lelemba, you get Sarah, you get me, you get Simon Stockley, you get lots of amazing people whose time alone, like Lela's time, hourly rate, I can't afford it. Fantastic. Please type questions that you've got for Lelemba in the chat box. Type questions that you have, that you've got for Lelemba. Great. And Lelemba, now coming to systems and processes, what would be the key things to bear in mind if you want to move fast, but again, sometimes people don't like systems, they don't like processes. And when you're trying to give people what to do and you want to move fast, but they don't have anything to refer to. Tell us about that. What should we do?
Cool. So I always feel like sometimes that you could have the opposite problem where founders are too dependent on systems to manage, and they hope the systems will manage their people on their behalf instead of them managing the systems. And so every system is really an add-on and must be a lever for helping you achieve your end goals, but it's not a replacement for your ability to manage people. You can use so many tools, right? So you say, let's get on Asana, let's get on Slack, let's do this, let's do that. And you end up just being very busy on these platforms and still you're not managing your people. This is still problematic. And so a system must be a lever that helps you become more efficient and more effective at managing your people and managing your speed for execution. So whatever tool you are introducing into a business must be an add-on to what you're already doing to just help you speed up things instead of it being a substitute for you actually managing your people, number one. Number two, processes. Processes, so everything has a process, right? So when it comes to processes, you have to be constantly thinking, for the sake of speed, how do we improve every process? So for example, I'll give you like one of the processes that I improved at Zona. Part of what we used to do is find an agent or a person in a community to become an agent for our business. The business was about money transfers and it was about sending and receiving money. In order to achieve this, we needed people in various communities who would act as the agents for collecting the money from the customers and for distributing the money to the customers. So if somebody needs to send money, they go to an agent. They say, I need to send 100 rands to Johannesburg. Here's the 100 rands. I'm paying the, say, 2 rand fee. Great. And the agent processes that on their mobile phone. And on the other end, where the recipient goes, they go to another agent and collect it. Setting up an agent was a process. We had to find the person. We had to train them on how to use the platform. We had to ensure they had some capital of their own. And we had, where the capital was insufficient, we had to make sure we could top them up with some of our own capital. We had to set up an infrastructure, which was a booth from which they operate so they can be easily identified. And that required getting a council permit, for example, setting up a slab and putting the booth on it. This is the process. What I found was at the beginning, our team, for example, would find the agent and then go to the council to get approval. This would take 2 weeks and the team would be not doing anything in that 2 weeks until the council gave us approval. Only when the council gave us approval would they then train the agent, then check if the agent has money, then put the agent in. This process would take a month to just set up an agent. And so I started to ask questions. And for each process, even if this is how people's excuse is always, this is how we've been doing things. Even if you've been doing it that way, it doesn't mean that's the most efficient and effective way of doing it. So you have to ask yourself critical questions like, how can we do this better? At which points do we feel this is breaking down that we can continuously improve? Every process can be improved. Nobody thought you could, go to space for the price that Elon Musk did it at. Nobody thought you could even reverse back the spaceship and come back and land it instead of it getting destroyed out there. But it got done because there was a constant asking of how can we improve on this? How can we do this faster, better, cheaper? And so I started asking these critical questions and I asked, why are we waiting for the 2 weeks? Does the council ever refuse permits? And the answer was like, no, not really. They don't. It just takes them time to go out to the site to inspect it, to make sure that it's a good site. And so it became, so then when we find the agent, why don't we already train them today? We find them, let's train them today. Let's check the next day if they've got enough cash. Let's make sure we've registered them and everything. Let's make sure we've got all of the slabs that we need to put up the booth, so that on the day the council says yes, we can put the booth on the ground and the person is in there operating because they're ready. It meant that we sped up the process. What used to take a month to 5-6 weeks was now taking maximum 2 weeks, with the only bottleneck being the approval, because we've done everything else in that 2 weeks. And so every process in your business, you need to ask yourself, is there a way of doing this better? And who should be in charge of making sure that this is getting done better? Every process. And so let's not be comfortable with, this is how I learned it, this is how it's always been done. Because if we always depended on how things were done, I think we'd also be extinct as a human race, right? So constant improvement, it's constant learning and constant questioning to speed up your business. Yeah.
Fantastic. We got questions here. We got a question from Michelle, single L. Michelle is asking, in terms of hiring, what is the best way? Agency, LinkedIn, etc.
It depends. It depends on the skill set that you're looking for. There'll be some specialized skill sets for which an agency might be better because maybe they specialize in that particular skill set. You will find that with a number of agencies, they might be great at, so you might find an agency that's great with just tech people. Like if you need tech people, this is the agency to go to. You're better off shortcutting your process by working with such an agency to get somebody on board. For more generalist things, there might be agencies that are slightly better at that. LinkedIn is great for specialization, particularly if you're looking for a particular skill. LinkedIn is great. And so I would say do both. There is really no harm in doing both. This just helps you speed up your process. You can have an agent looking for the skill set, and you can be searching for on your own in LinkedIn. Just don't make it the excuse for not hiring, that I used the agent, they didn't give me great people. Make sure you're also, doing your own checking. I've hired great people via agencies, and I've also hired great people from referrals. I also use personal networks, really, where I ask my WhatsApp groups, does anybody know somebody who can do this for me? And we've gotten great people through those networks as well. And so go wide for top skill, but yeah, I wouldn't say one is better than the other.
Great. And yeah, she had added to say, especially for top stuff. And I think you've answered it very well for all types of stuff. And yes, absolutely. I agree in terms of with LinkedIn and networks. The wonderful thing is that good people are already working somewhere else. Okay. So good people already have a job. And so it's like the principle where they say, the good ones are taken, right? So what you do, you need to go and find the good people. What people do, then they just headhunt. So you can go onto LinkedIn and search for specific skills you want, and you find like a whole list of, not skills, roles, and you find a whole list. You start headhunting. So in terms of, you just reach out to them like, hey, then you sell them on the vision, but you don't send everything in one go. It's really a conversation to say, hey, we got this, our company is doing this, and this is what, like you put in the inspiring story, and then saying, would you or somebody be interested in this? Or could I talk to you to point me in the right direction? But again, it's not like a direct ask, it's ask, but also saying, refer me. And when they're looking, you'll be like, oh, this is interesting for me, but at least get to talk to them. Then if they're sold on you, they'll leave the other company and join you. And even for less pay if they are inspired. Great. There's another question from Tumelo Montaung. Advice on dealing with a team member that is not delivering.
Yeah, this is
when
always.
Should you fire people?
So yeah, team members that are not delivering. This is always an important one, because there are two elements of this. Number one is thinking through whether you were clear as a leader in giving them what they should be doing. And number two, were you measuring? Because if you were clear and you're measuring, and you're checking in with them. So so let me give an example. Jade, you are running a 30-day social media campaign. Every day we want to see something being posted on Facebook or on Instagram, whatever your social media platform is, for 30 days running to the event. And I'm giving the event as a typical example because it's an easy one. On day 29, if I'm managing and measuring and I realize that day 30, nothing was delivered, day 29, nothing was delivered, I have to check in with the team member and find out why. Why isn't this getting delivered? It might be a solvable thing, like I didn't have a data bundle, in which case we can solve that quickly and hopefully get back on track on day 28 as we're counting down. Or it might be, oh, sorry, I forgot. That's problematic. That's a delivery issue. Or I don't know what to do, which is a skill issue because you might have the wrong team member on the wrong seat on the bus. However, if you are checking in and you're measuring and you are saying, this is not the right way of doing it, and you're not delivering on this, even the team member knows that they're not delivering. It makes these conversations easier if you are checking in. What usually becomes a friction point, if you have not checked in on the team member for the whole of the 30 days, and it's, day 2, we're counting down to day 0. And then you say, what has happened with social media? You haven't delivered. Then it's now a whole frenzy. You are catching them off guard. And it's also partly your responsibility, really, for having not checked in on the team member. And for a lot of leaders, you even know this, and yet it becomes like, oh, they haven't delivered. Why haven't they delivered on your watch? They were on your watch the whole time. Where were you when they were not delivering? For team members who don't deliver, if you are checking in with them as the leader, even they know they're not delivering. And so those conversations become so much easier because you can then say, look, the last 2 weeks, we've been meeting up every 2 days on this item, and it's still not getting delivered. We asked if it's a skill set issue. You said you can do it. We asked if you've got the resources to do it. You said you did, but it's not done. In which case, those conversations are easier. We can't have this happening for 2 weeks straight. What would you like me to do? And for the most part, some people will say, I just don't feel I have the skill set for it, and maybe I should look at other options. Great. Or I'm not happy in this team because I'm having friction with my team members. This is what is happening. Good. Those are things we can sort out. I've had incidences where I've let go of people and they've said, thank you. And thank you for being let go, because they knew that they're holding back the team and they just didn't have it in them to say, I quit or I can't do it. But it's not fair for the team member who's been put in a wrong role to keep being in that role because they keep feeling they're not good enough, which is not great for people and delivery. And so if you are checking in with your team members, delivery conversations become easier and easier because you can identify what the issues are early, and where it's fixable, they can be fixed. Where it's not fixable, it's either the person is leaving or they're being reassigned to something that they might be better at. You might have an accountant in sales, and they were desperate to get the job. They were absolutely desperate to get the job. That's why they applied for it. But maybe they might be better suited at actually doing your bookkeeping, And so if you are checking in as the leader and if you're measuring and there's visibility, when people are not delivering, they actually know they're not delivering. And so letting them go might be relieving them of a lot of stress, actually. Yeah.
Fantastic. There's a question from LN. It says, Lelemba, what is your vision statement?
Yeah, so we want to drive economic growth in Africa through investing in women entrepreneurs and leaders. So that's our vision. We understand fully that if women are not participating optimally in the economy, that we are setting our continent back. Just a slight movement towards parity, if we can get to invest more in women entrepreneurs, we could improve the GDP of Africa by 10% by 2025, which is just a few years from now. And so our vision is that we contribute to the economic development of this continent by investing in the development of women entrepreneurs and leaders. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the last question from Henry S. Tembo says, what is the motivation for sales team members that are unable to meet sales targets year in, year out? Or maybe, what do you do?
Yeah, first of all, they shouldn't be able to meet sales targets year in and year out. Why are they still there? That's problematic. And so for a lot of salespeople, I've found that, first of all, if you have a good target and you're keeping on track, there's incentives that you can have for salespeople. It can be a base salary, which also then earns a commission. That's why in most organizations, your salespeople will be some of the highest paid people, because they also earn a part commission on what they sell. So you can have a base salary with the commission so that they feel that their incentives are aligned, and that if they burst the target, they get more. But two, also recognition for a lot of people. How are you recognizing your people in your organization? Are they getting credit for the work that they're doing? Or are they all being lumped into one group? I've found that with a lot of sales teams, for example, the responsibility is bunched up into the team, which is really not fair, because you might have one rockstar salesperson and other people are slacking, and then you're celebrating the whole team, and this person feels like, but I did all the work and I carried the heavy load. So intentionally recognize who is selling, how much they're selling on a constant basis, because really sales is the lifeline of business. But also there are ways of incentivizing them in pay, where you might have a base salary which has a commission. And the commission doesn't have to start from like you sell 10. It could be like after you've achieved the target, you start to get even a higher commission, which incentivizes them to work even harder. But if year on year they're not performing, that's not the salesperson's problem, that's the founder's problem, because it means you don't have the right salespeople on the team. And it's either they're not incentivized right, or they're just not the right people. Yeah.
Fantastic. And a lot of times, actually, there are no sales activities. What did you do? Oh, I was doing sales in the background. What does that mean?
I spoke to a few customers. What does that mean? What is you? If you don't have visibility, you really cannot manage what you can't measure, and you can't measure what you can't see, right? So having visibility is key.
Fantastic. And lastly, remember, what is possible now for all these entrepreneurs here? What is possible for them if they show growth month on month consistently? What opens up for them?
Yeah. So I'll give you a typical example of what our ambition is when we invest in entrepreneurs. We'll typically, from our seed fund, invest in entrepreneurs when they're at that $50,000 annual revenue, or clearly heading towards it. We can see that in the next 3 to 6 months, they will hit that $50,000 revenue mark. Our ambition is to move them from $50,000 revenue to $1 million in 18 months. And this is possible with the right strategy, but with execution. And so one of the first things that we insist on after investing is a good team, because we know you can't execute at that pace and move revenue from $50,000 to $1 million on your own. Most of the time, by the time we're investing in an entrepreneur, it's either just them with a very small team and maybe even some outsourced people. But post-investment, you have to have an A-star team, because we're looking at you growing this revenue from 50 to $1 million. Why we want to get you there is that when the business gets to that point, there's this point between 50,000 actually and $1 million where there's a valley of death. A lot of businesses die here, believe it or not. You might feel like, because $50,000 is what now? Almost 800,000 rands. You might feel like, we're doing very well at this point. At this point is where a lot of businesses can actually fail, And so how do we speed up this jump? Because past that $1 million, one, you get access to all sorts of funding. Funding is being thrown at you. Series A investors are knocking on your door wanting to invest in you. But also the impact that you can create is significantly more different from what you can create as a $50,000 revenue business. And it's not for everybody as well. It's not for everybody as well. And it's okay if you want to have a small business that is a lifestyle business that is just taking care of you and your family. That's absolutely okay. That's valuable in its own sense. But if you're one of those entrepreneurs that really wants to create impact, and impact where you can create 5,000 jobs, impact where you can create, other entrepreneurs in your value chain, because the more your business grows, it creates a value chain of other businesses that start to thrive around it. If that's what you want to do, then it's really, really critical that you survive the valley of death. And so getting the right type of support, getting the right type of funding then becomes super important. And skill sets and execution are what is going to get you across. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lelemba. This was a super amazing session full of valuable information. Thank you very much. You are amazing. And thanks everybody for joining us today. So just type in the chat box, what has been your key takeaway from this session? What's the key takeaway from this session? Type the key takeaway from this session. Also, great. And to share, you should share your key takeaways and what you are learning on your social media, #Pranary, #Pranary. And then if you know one person that you believe would benefit from this, just share the link with them. And thank you very much. All these sessions are available on pranary.com. So if you've registered, you find them on the concierge page. And then we have a bonus session later today with Sarah Dusek, because she's joining us from the United States. She will join us in the afternoon at 5. And so thank you very much, everybody. And thanks for sharing your key takeaways. Great. Thank you very much, Lelemba. Thanks, Lumbu. Thanks, Christy. We'll see you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll go into details of sales. What can you do to ramp up your sales?
I'm enjoying these learnings. That's a
brilliant. Let's do that. Like, you can read out the key learnings, like, from the different people.
The founder cannot depend on systems in place to manage the team. Absolutely important. Engaging the right people for the job. Execution is about accountability and building the right team. There was another one. You have to put together an A team and break it down into steps. Key takeaway, what can I do and only I can do? Yes, working with people smarter than I is key. Cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you. I've enjoyed the session.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Check out the replays.